The Government Employees Pension Fund will implement updated actuarial interest factors with effect from the 1st of October this year. Sounds like a mouthful, but we will unpack it in just a moment. These factors are derived from assumptions adopted in the fund's most recent statutory actuarial valuation as at the 31st of March 2024. So the previous update to the factors took effect on the 1st of November 2022. The implementation of the revised factors follows the completion of a consultative process with employee organizations as at the 31st of July 2025, as required by the GEP Law and Rules. Yeah, this is the part where we make sense of it all. I'm joined by Lunga Mahlaba, who is Business Development Management and Communications Head at Inkunzi Wealth Group, as well as Jannie Oosthuizen, who is the National Manager responsible for collective bargaining in the PSA. Mr. Oosthuizen, let me start with you, just for, clarity and clarification. When we say actuarial interest factors, what are we talking about?
Good afternoon, and thank you for giving us the opportunity. Well, the actuarial interest factors is being determined in terms of Rule 14.2 of the GEPF rules, which actually indicate it is the benefits that's payable to a member on resignation, or when they leave the service with less than 10 years pensionable services, or they retire, or there's death. That is when the actuarial interest factors actually is payable, and the specific calculations being utilized to determine the benefits that the member accrued for that specific year.
Yeah, Lunga, perhaps you can weigh in on this as well. What does the process entail? How do we determine actuarial interest factors? What does the GEPF and other practitioners in that space, what do they in practice have to do?
Absolutely. It's all about asset liability modeling, but basically the GEPF is a defined benefit fund, meaning that they use a particular formula to estimate the resignation or the benefits that a member would then receive upon exiting the fund. So what are those items? Basically, it's the service, it's the last pensionable salary, and then it's the factor, which is then which is what we are talking about today. So that particular factor, if it then is impacted, it means that the benefits of the people, because they are using, because it's one of the items that is being used to actually estimate the members' sort of benefits. So if it's reduced or adjusted negatively, then that means the benefits of the member is then also negatively then impacted, particularly when it comes to the resignation, and then also if you wanted to have an option to resign and transfer. So then it talks to choice, right? Because remember, members have choice when it comes to exiting. Some do not want to actually retire or exit through the GEPF. So then if the benefits is then now reduced, it means that those options or those choices then become limited. So we have seen in the past that the communication with regard to this particular process has been a bit of low, because we do remember last year there was a whole lot of talk with the two-pot system, and the GEPF was quite forthcoming in terms of communicating and actually informing members. So this time, it seems like the GEPF is not communicating in a manner that is like how they did it when they actually did the two-pot sort of communication. So that is a bit of a concern. We also note that the contingent liability, which is currently sitting at 81% at the GEPF, right, it's supposed to be sitting at 100% and above, but it's currently at 81%. In previous valuations, it was it has improved, but it was even lower. So it is a concern, because if the economy takes a very negative turn, it means that members will then be in a very dire or negative situation. We also note that in the recent past, the GEPF has been on average generating plus minus 7%. If you then look at the real rates of return, you would then note that things are a bit shaky. So so it's something that has to then be communicated, like how it was communicated. It was going to be the support system.
So Jannie, just from your employee perspective, you've been part of the consultation processes that went into determining these actuarial interest factors. The issues that Lunga is raising, are these the issues that were on the table, and what was the outcome from those consultations?
So I think it is important for us to also realize that the consultation process is being dictated by the law. The PSA in 2021, 2022 took the GEPF to court. And the High Court judgment, the Supreme Court of Appeal Court judgment clearly indicates that employee organizations needs to be consulted when there's actuarial interest factors valuation. And that's been done every second year. Now, spreading out of that judgment, indeed, the GEPF did on the 5th of May provide the PSA and all employee organizations an opportunity to give inputs in the actuarial report that was sent through to all parties. We did then appoint experts on the actuarial interest values. That was done, and the 15% downward adjustment that was proposed by this actuaries, which the GEPF is going to be implemented, was consulted with us. The PSA did raise certain issues with the GEPF, with the CEO of the GEPF. The first of all was the smooth progression that the PSA would like to see. That is, first of all, when you are 55 years and you merge from your AZ factor to your AX factor, that the transition should be smooth and should not be subject to a subjective adjustment. And it should really be focused on reasonability, and we call it the testing of reasonability. Is it reasonable to really use a subjective evaluation that was done and apply it to these XY factors when they go into it. We're also actually indicating that to say that the approach that the GEP would like to take by comparing the aggregated actuarial interest of members at the valuation date using the proposed factors with the valuation liabilities. We further record that consistent approach should be followed. And not only with this, but going forward to determine the actuarial interest factors to facilitate the assessment and comparison of the future determination of the actuarial interest factors based on historical data. Our biggest concern was the impact that the two-pot system have. Unfortunately, a lot of members, as we currently know, and South Africa is in financial distress, and they've utilized the benefit that was there on the two-pot system, and that had a huge impact on the fund and to date. And therefore, we also request that going forward, that the GEPF should at least between 2024 and 2027, when the next actuarial interest factor should have been determined, have a test, a period in between, in order to see what will the impact be, and especially focusing on the two-pot system, the impact of the two-pot system on the actuarial interest factors, as the previous speaker indicated that it does have a negative impact on some of the members. But I must emphasize that it's only on the resignation benefit, and it will have no impact on members that is currently in the fund and still receiving their monthly pension.
Right.
It is purely on your resignation.
Lunga, let me ask you to explain the 15% element very slowly for us and as clearly as you possibly can. What are the implications? What's this 15% that we're talking about in this whole formula, and the assumptions that are being made in these actuarial interest determinations? I think you may be muted, Lunga.
They're talking about an average. So basically, the average is set to then be 15%, but based on prior history, we do note that it ranges between 10 to 30%. So you would have a member lose almost like 27% and so forth. So for an example, if you had 6 million rand at a rate of 14 to 15%, almost 840,000 will then be lost. Remember, we are talking about the resignation benefits. That's why we are highlighting the choice element, because when you are exiting from the GEPF, you would have that choice. So if that choice is now reduced, it means you are in a more difficult situation, which is why we are highlighting that similarly to how they communicated during the two-pot system, this should not be something that is communicated in a more lighter manner. It should be communicated like how it was, because if you look at it in a broader scope, you would note that it seems like an additional taxation, because now it reduces your resignation benefits, which will then, if you wanted to then exit in other options, you would then be in a negative sort of element. So yeah, the 15% is on average, but it could then range between 10 to 30, depending on the ages and so forth.
So this applying only to resignation benefits, Mr. Oosthuizen, does this imply that there's a certain subtle element of trying to encourage retention of pension benefits and not, exiting, and perhaps retention of staff as long as possible to the point of retirement? Or does this not have anything to do with that?
Well, I would propose. I don't think it has a thing to do with that, to trying to keep the people in the fund. But yeah, I mean, employment currently in the country, unemployment is very high. So keep the people employed, I think, is the best option. Yes, as the previous speaker indicating that when you resign and maybe you want to transfer your money to one or other service provider, it might be lesser because of the resignation and because of the actuarial interest factors that's been downward adjusted. But in previous years, it was upward adjusted. So it depends on the economy, and I think it is important for us to understand that, yeah, it is better for us to be employed than to be not employed and resign and then sit with the negative impact that it might have on your actuarial interest factors, on your resignation benefits when you exit the service.
Yeah, and let me stick with you, Jannie. Someone watching this who's a government employee belonging to the GEPF and thinking, I have no intentions of resigning anytime soon or changing careers. My plan, perhaps I'm close enough to retirement. My plan is to ride it out and continue to perform my duties until I reach retirement age. What should be the takeaway for a person in that position from this conversation? What's the likely impact of all of this that we've been discussing on their pension?
Look, there is not impact on the people that will ride the wave until they reach the age of retirement, because this is only impacting on people with the resignation when they resign or they want to exit the GEPF or they exit the services. So from where I'm sitting, I would encourage people to stay as long as you are at the unemployment, until you reach the age of 65 or over the specific age, and then you will see that your benefits is not being affected by the downward adjustment of the actuarial interest factors. Only when you want to resign now, you don't want to continue working anymore. And I think that's important to give through to our members. Stay where you are, work until you reach the pensionable age, and then exit.
All right, thank you for that. That is Jannie Oosthuizen, National Manager responsible for collective bargaining in the Public Servants Association, as well as Lunga Mahlaba, who is Business Development Manager and Communications Head at Inkunzi Wealth Group.